Well, I feel like week 18 is doing the week 18 thing, Bloom. If there's
Yeah,
a
what
more week 18 than this year, I don't know. This is the week 18iest of any week 18 of week 18s.
right? What do you like to say? Sees, I was not even supposed to be here. Week 18 was a thing only recently. Maybe it should never been a thing, but it is a thing. So we're a thing with week 18.
We are a thing. How about that?
You got a team, here's a word of the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
Why in the world is anyone playing fantasy football when nobody's playing in the National Football League? I don't know, but we're here to talk about it. It's the Audible Week 18 preview, starting with Steelers and Ravens, Mason Rudolph versus Tyler Huntley, Bloom. And I think because we're doing every single game, we can kind of combine everything. Also because, well, again, there are so many players not playing. On the Baltimore side, Lamar Jackson's not playing. So that's going to look different. Although Tyler Huntley's very capable. This one's at home for Baltimore. These two teams always put on a show, but it's Pittsburgh Steelers trying to fight and get help. They have to win and get help.
Right.
Baltimore's just kind of on cruise control. Don't get anybody hurt. You've still got that amazing defense from Baltimore. The Steelers aren't going to lie down in this one. So I'm not sure what to expect. And if you're still playing fantasy football, I'm not sure what to expect from this entire week, Bloom.
Yeah, and maybe this is a good week to say fantasy football doesn't matter, and let's just watch some football. Let's see what stories are set up for the playoffs. Some of them have already been set in motion. Some of them yet to be decided. This game's going to figure into that. Steelers need to win and have Tennessee or Miami win. You can see how they've segmented the schedule and ordered the game. It's the Buffalo-Miami game intertwined with a lot of AFC playoff scenarios. So it's the last game. This is the first game. Steelers can still get in with a loss. Denver needs to help them. That's not a good feeling. And look, one of the things is everybody loved December 23rd. I'm not going to sing. I am going to come up with more excuses to sing in the future, though. I'm sorry if it bothers anybody because I enjoyed that. It seems like people enjoyed that. But indeed, Rudolph will light the way to the playoffs. Maybe. What's funny about this, Cecil, is you actually are seeing the Steelers' offense come to life. A true thunder and lightning, when the lightning has some thunder too, in Harris and Warren. And when you watch Harris's running style, I know running back's first round pick may be suspect in terms of resource allocations, but when it's that running back that can help you boa constrictor a game in the fourth quarter, that's going to help you win, which is the point, right? George Pickens and his high wire act making plays downfield, Deontay Johnson and his route running and his ability to get open. It's all coming together. And they win and get some help. It'll come together in the playoffs. For Baltimore, well, just remember this. Strange, week 18. This is why week 18 gives us so much consternation. It's better for Baltimore to lose this game. It's better for Baltimore to lose this game because if they lose, and Buffalo loses, that's going to make it really hard for Buffalo to make the playoffs. The Steelers winning this game makes it harder for Buffalo to make the playoffs if they lose. So Baltimore has, who's the team in the AFC bracket that is the biggest obstacle to Baltimore? It's Buffalo. We will get to watch, one of the things we'll get to watch in week 18, players looking to the future. Tyler Huntley, still trying to prove he deserves a chance. Tylan Wallace, remember, this guy returned a walk-off, overtime, punt return touchdown, his first punt return in 5 years. So anyway, big story here for Baltimore, though, is it's now or never. If you're going to win a Super Bowl in the Lamar Jackson era, it's not going to be set up better than it is for them this year.
Yeah, and honestly, Bloom, this is where the sports radio takes over with me because it's like Mason Rudolph is looking better than Kenny Pickett.
Oh, yeah.
That's not great. That's not great at all because if you're the Steelers, we know what the Steelers are going to do, right? And God bless Kenny Pickett. I like Kenny Pickett. I don't love Kenny Pickett, but guess what they're going to do, Bloom? They're going to hold on to him.
They're going to go back to Kenny Pickett.
They're going to keep propping it back up there. And unless he learns from Mason Rudolph, which could be possible, players do improve.
Right.
But like from what we've seen from Pickett, enough, buddy, enough. This is one of the richest quarterback drafts that we've seen in a while, maybe since 2018, which I know not all of them were hits, but Like, you got to go back up to the plate. There's your baseball reference, Bloom.
Yeah.
And the Steelers are going to F around. Sorry, Joe. But, like, that's what we know what they're going to do. Well, we got Kenny Pickett and we'll keep building. Like, no, you need another quarterback and you just won't do it.
Yeah. And I think that, let's look to Jordan Love. I mean, hey, maybe Kenny Pickett would have worked out as a first round pick if he didn't play until year 3. Right. And Matt Waldman chronicled this, where Kenny Pickett, when the screws got tighter late in games, you saw all the bad tendencies. So maybe that was a sign that he needed to feel much more confident before those bad tendencies. Because what we're seeing is indecisiveness. What we're seeing is a lack of boldness. And maybe Mason Rudolph, we didn't see these things. This Mason Rudolph, we didn't see 3-4 years ago when the Steelers had him start a bunch of games. So maybe that's the key here. Again, it's always involving 6 degrees of listen to Matt Waldman.
Yes, that's right. That's a good way to segue to our next game. Why? It's Houston and Indianapolis. This one in Indy, and looks like Zach Moss is going to return. I mean, I'm just thinking, if you are playing fantasy, Moss will return, but don't believe they take anything away from Jonathan Taylor. It just means, well, now Moss might get a little something there. The Houston side of things and that confounding, like, we know what they should do in the backfield, but will they do it?
Right.
Continue on there, looking at that. And then can they build momentum with CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and all of their great assets and weapons? Houston's been a fun story to watch. How does the story end in week 18?
Yeah, I think that, again, with the winners in this game and winners in a playoffs, if Jacksonville loses to Tennessee, the winner will win the division title. If there's a tie, both teams can get in. And, we've already seen once now the perverse nature of a tie helping teams, and do teams play for a tie? I hope that this one doesn't end up that way. CJ Stroud can make it not end up that way. And CJ Stroud's story has been one of the best stories of the year. But speaking of quarterbacks and success or failure, belief in self, you can see it, and it's contagious. Devin Singletary, he's never stopped believing in himself. He's got an incentive. I don't know what it is, 165 yards or something like that. He should be in week 18 lineups, okay? He's going to be a good pick in playoff fantasy drafts if you see the Texans get through. Dalton Schultz needs 4 receptions, so, for an incentive. Noah Brown and Robert Woods are banged up. This should be a big Nico Collins game, and we are going to see Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie play a little bit for our dynasty futures. And this is a pretty amazing story for the Colts. Wow. Gardner Minshew has them in a win and you're in playoff game. Who had that on their bingo card? Shane Steichen might have. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. We're really excited about Anthony Richardson for fantasy and for NFL. But Shane Steichen is maybe what we should be most excited about, as he was able to stay the course in an unbelievably chaotic preseason. Unbelievably chaotic up, and maybe working against your owner, working against some of the things that you don't have control over. And they've gotten the best out of this team. So, we're going to watch Josh Downs develop. Michael Pittman's a real number 1. Jonathan Taylor, a cornerstone of this offense, playing in front of the home crowd to get into the playoffs.
Cleveland in Cincinnati as we go to Sunday action. You did an audio test for me, Bloom, so you might want to repeat what you said when you tested it. It's like, it's exciting to watch Joe Flacco, except we're not going to watch Joe Flacco this week. So here we go. Week 18 football. Let's just get through it, baby. But it's Browns who are nobody. You said the biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
Biggest obstacle for the Ravens is the Bills. I won't disagree with that, but also say nobody wants to play Cleveland. Nobody.
No. And whoever wins the AFC South will get to play Cleveland in the first round.
They'll get to lose to Cleveland in the first round.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully Cleveland's not thinking of it that way. It'll be a while until we get another story as remarkable as this Joe Flacco story. I saw one cease that said, of course, Joe Flacco didn't make the Pro Bowl because he's going to be playing in the Super Bowl. Watch Cedric Tillman, David Bell, Harrison Bryant's going to be looking for a contract, Pierre Strong. These are our dynasty eval guys. And look, I'm going to say this on the Cincinnati side, because we kind of foresaw this, but not this way, whenever Joe Burrow started the season hurt, that this might be a lost season for this team. And they didn't treat it as a lost season. Joe Burrow didn't treat it as a lost season. And then he ended up getting hurt, a different injury anyway. And then Jake Browning and the organization didn't treat it as a lost season after that. And they were in the playoff hunt until last week. This is a good organization. We're back to the Bengals being a good organization. Watch Tayshaun Brown, Charlie Jones, Andre Yoshevus in the Battle of Ohio.
Yeah, and Mano La Mancha, one of my favorite avatars here when we bring up the comments on YouTube. He's like a Yosevus dynasty stash. And that's why week 18, Bloom, I'm in sports talk radio mode where I want to just talk about the stories because you shouldn't be playing week 18. But these players, and I've said it before on whatever show, I talk a lot, Bloom. I'm sorry. Like it's a meaningless game. It's not meaningless for the players. For multiple reasons, it's not meaningless for these players. And that's where guys like a Yosevus, yes, we'll be watching them with great interest. So that's where my week 18 intrigue comes from.
Yeah, and I think that for the teams, they're in eval mode. Some have been in eval mode for a couple of weeks, but Willie Parker is our avatar here, our poster child for week 17, week 18. It's changed. Can be your crystal ball. It can be a look into the future. So it might seem like a throwaway game. Certainly, it's a throwaway week for fantasy football, but it's not a throwaway week for knowing what might be coming in the future.
Because you said the name Willie Parker.
There it is. Oh, you have it right there.
Yeah, I still have a few copies left of the old footballguys.com magazine.
What sticks out from interviewing him? What's the first thing you remember when you got to interview him for that?
He was really nice to my son. Because my son, this is 2007, so my son was 8 years old. And I had Liam get on the phone with Willie, and it was like the greatest thing ever. 8-year-old kid and having an NFL player. That's the thing I remember about interviewing Willie the most for this magazine. Was like, he was really, really cool to Liam, and I appreciate that, So, yeah, that was cool. But if you bring up the name Willie Parker, Bloom, I'm going to have to show everybody that. There's people that may not even remember that we put out a magazine for 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Because the fourth year was on disc, and then the fifth year we didn't do it. But first cover athlete, Tiki Barber. Second was a Photoshopped Reggie Bush, right, in a Saints uniform. And did Dodds do the Photoshop or have it done? Whatever.
Sounds right.
The third was Willie Parker. So there you go. A little trip down memory lane for the football guys. And how about the memories? You remember the Jaron Hall era? Because it's about over. Although might get a little bit more of it. Minnesota and Detroit. Minnesota has chosen their starter. It does not matter. Going up against Detroit, and it's like, okay, Detroit building momentum for the postseason. Let's see what that looks like in this finale against the Vikings.
Yeah, Vikings can still get into the playoffs if they win, and Green Bay, Seattle, and New Orleans or Tampa Bay lose. This is where they've ended up.
May I interject real quick, please?
Yeah.
Dude, and this is what's really bad, and this is where I get kind of pissed off at Roger Goodell. This is just bad football. Minnesota doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs. If the Broncos were still alive, I'd say the same damn thing. So it's not a Broncos thing. It is a Broncos show. But I'm like, no, this is just bad football. The league celebrates parity. It's not parity. We're watching some terrible football this year.
Yeah, well, and some of it is quarterback. Quarterback play is so important. And see, where I was going to go with this is we've always held out Kirk Cousins as the quarterback, purgatory quarterback, like the Cousins Meridian, right? When the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett, that's where we started. It was like, well, maybe he could be Kirk Cousins. Oh, really? You're trying to make me feel better saying that? But look, how important is Kirk Cousins to this team? I mean, maybe you might say not that important because they didn't start winning until Joshua Dobbs became the starter. But you can see what kind of chaos it has really thrown this offense into without Kirk Cousins. And well, we'll see where Kirk Cousins ends up next year. As you know, Minnesota's probably not going to make the playoffs. We're going to watch Ty Chandler in this one. The Detroit side becomes a lot more intriguing. Will Dan Campbell rest the starters? He said he's not going to. It seems like the Dan Campbell style to say, I don't care if anybody gets hurt. We are going to keep playing football until the last whistle. The clock says zeros because Detroit versus everybody. Cecil, you familiar with that little slogan, Detroit versus everybody? You ever seen that like on the t-shirts and stuff?
Okay.
No, that's the Detroit mindset, Detroit versus everybody. And now you remember Ron Artest and all that good stuff, Malice at the Palace. Now you really have, this is kind of like Buffalo falling to 6-6, right? Now you really have a story that allows you to pull the sword from the stone. You know, Now, if the refs are against us, right? But isn't that maybe where you can dig down and find that extra something that you didn't know you had? So I'm going to be really interested to see how Detroit, I think they played this one straight up. I think they played this one angry, and I think they played this one to put the league on notice that next time it won't come down to a call on whether a tackle reported. And if you have a lion that's important in this offense, I'd say you play them if you're still playing Week 18 fantasy football.
Yeah, I think people were asking us about that. Was it Steve that asked about it in the chat today? And then we did have some people on Saturday. I think it was in the comments after the show, which comment on this show, because I'll go back in and talk to y'all via comments. Most of them are kind. And besides, if you and I have to put up with Twitter, Bloom, YouTube comments are fine. Like it's about the same. Whatever, baby. It's all good. We invite a certain community in, and our community reacts as such. But like, come back to the comments. But people were asking about that. Lion, what do you think of the Lions? Why didn't you talk about the Lions? I'm like, oh, it's Saturday, baby. We're only talking about Sunday.
Well, I'll just say real quick, Cease. I don't think that the Lions are full of a bunch of liars. I don't think the ref had the game fixed or it's malicious. I think the ref made a mistake. I mean, you can go back and look at the Peyton Hendershot tripping tackle. The only person trying to trip on that play was a Lion. So maybe, I don't know, the edible was kicking in for that ref. I don't know. But there were some problems, not just on the Lion side. I think that ref was just not reliable. Hopefully they went back and objectively reviewed these things, because there were 2 game-changing calls in that play, not just one. And without the tripping call and Peyton Hendershot, maybe we never even have the 2-point conversion.
I hope they check his bank account too, because again, and I'll keep this brief because I've said it before, but with the NFL in bed with Vegas, and they're not in bed to read stories. They're in bed to get it on. Like with them in bed with Vegas, you can't have that stuff.
Yeah.
So like, the NFL, there used to be a time when we'd have to talk about the odds and hushed tones or flipping code. I am going to cuss on this show. I think it's Week 18, Bloom. I think I've had enough. So this might be the show where you get to see it. On YouTube, we're allowed to cuss. It's like after the first 30 seconds or whatever.
Right.
I know Joe would, hey, buddy. Like, Joe, we love you. That's why I don't cuss on this show, Joe, because I love you. And I still love you, but damn it, I might have to cuss because this is it's a little fishy. On the football side of things, will the Lions, in your opinion, Bloom, because the Broncos have gone 4 years without a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver. The Lions could have 2,000-yard rushers. And it's been a minute since we've seen that. And we've seen some along the way, Vic and Warwick Dunn. What the Browns did it back in the day, like Leroy Horde, right? It was kicking around on one of those 1,000-yard seasons. So it does it. Carolina did it. D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart. I believe David Montgomery is 25 yards away. Don't make me do math. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is 85 yards away. Do you think they would go for that and kind of get the record with, or not necessarily a record, but just get a nice mark where you have 2 1,000-yard rushers? And think about how they've done it, dude. They have 2 1,000-yard rushers on one of the most high-powered offenses in the league. And it's not just all about running. Most of the times when we see 2,000 yards on the ground, if it's one back or two, it's like, that's the offense. No, these guys are just a piece of that offense, a very important piece.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I would expect that they're just going to keep pedal to the metal, and they're going to keep playing everything depends on this game, even though very little depends on this game unless Dallas loses. So sure, get them both over 1,000 yards. And, we've seen also these backs used even interchangeably at the goal line. So yeah, I do think, was Detroit the team earlier this year that the running back let the other running back said, no, you get in there, you finish it. Was it Gibbs and Montgomery? Was that Gibbs and Montgomery?
I might be remembering it. Yeah. It's Week 18, baby.
So there's if it was them, there's a sense that they may give, the players some say in those things. And I do think, we're going to watch this. You heard Blaine Gabbert talking about how many yards Travis Kelce is away from 1,000. So those things do matter in Week 18.
Yeah, they matter in Week 18. And let's keep the conversation going. Where are we at? Jacksonville and Detroit, or excuse me,
Tennessee.
Jacksonville and Tennessee. Sorry, Jacksonville and Tennessee in this contest. It's Thursday morning. We're doing one preview show this week, everybody.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be Ryan Tannehill, right? Do we know that yet? Has that been official yet with Will Levis? Then if you're Tennessee, this is where Bloom, I really want to go into our regular offseason mode today, but it's like I'm more interested in, is Tennessee going to take a quarterback?
Yeah.
Would you take a Michael Penix Jr. or did Will
Right.
Levis show you enough? I can make the argument on both sides, by the way, that he did show you enough and that he didn't show you enough. And again, in this quarterback-rich league, and it's a Broncos show, they're in front of the Broncos in draft position.
Yeah.
Michael Penix is the Broncos quarterback they want if medicals check out. But like, if you're Tennessee, it's like, do you want another Kenny Pickett on your hands?
Right.
Is Will Levis Kenny Pickett? Are they about the same? You know, what's happening there? But I suppose let's talk about this game. Is Trevor Lawrence going to play? Christian Kirk has been activated in the 21-day window. We don't know yet if he'll actually play this week, but that window now is open for Kirk. So some games aren't very exciting. This one has a little bit of intrigue.
Yeah, well, a lot on the line here. Jacksonville wins the division title. If they lose, they can still get in if Pittsburgh and Denver lose and Houston and Indy don't tie. Was this a step forward? You know, last year they come out of the shadow of the Urban Meyer era and they win a playoff game. They win a division. Was this a step forward? I don't think so, but maybe will be remembered as one if they can win the division and beat Cleveland next week. Trevor Lawrence is banged up. He's like going to play. Travis Etienne's coming on with a 62-yard touchdown, so maybe they put more on his shoulders and less on Trevor Lawrence's injured shoulder. Calvin Ridley, you know, this is a game for Calvin Ridley, especially against the Tennessee secondary, to show how important he was. I still think the trade was successful for them. On the Tennessee side, like you said, the story here is Will Levis. Remember that 1 week that everyone said, wow, all 4 teams in the AFC South have their quarterback. That was a nice week. Remember that, the Will Levis era? Because you're right, Cease. You know, what you've seen is, and again, maybe it's throwing these guys in as rookies or knowing which, like Anthony Richardson should be in as a rookie. CJ Stroud should be in as rookie. As crazy it is with Bryce Young, we'll talk about as a number 1 overall pick. Maybe he just shouldn't have been in as a rookie. I think Cease, and guess who's been talking about this forever? Matt Waldman. I think that there's a quarterback who's going to learn on the job. There's a quarterback that is going to play at the limit of his abilities. So go ahead and put him out there so he can make the mistakes and learn where that limit is. And then there are quarterbacks who are going to imprint and need confidence and need structure around them and also need to feel really ready to take on an NFL defense. And if they're thrown in before that happens, then they're never going to overcome that, right? They're never going to go. I mean, in the extreme case, it'd be like David Carr, where he just never had a chance. Sam Bradford just never had a chance. Really never had a chance to get over the struggles they faced early. And it seems like Will Levis might be that kind of quarterback. Kenny Pickett might be that kind of quarterback. Jordan Love might be that kind of quarterback. And it just happens that circumstance kept him, because Jordan Love, when he got in previous to this year, looked like, well, Kenny Pickett and Will Levis. Last dance with Derrick Henry makes my heart hurt a little to think about that, Cease. You know, I mean, we did have some moments of glory with Derrick Henry in a Titans uniform. And at least in this 21st century NFL, Mike Vrabel, the Titans, as much as we bemoan the old school mentality and how that keeps this team from growing and coming into the 21st century, we did get to see Derrick Henry used the way that Derrick Henry should be used. You know?
Yeah, finally. Remember, it took him some years to get that thing going, and most of the big games that he had were against who?
Jacksonville. So maybe he goes out to bang. Yeah. And I'll just say this, and we'll talk. Derrick Henry's going to be somewhere next year. We're going to talk about him in fantasy football. But Derrick Henry, I mean, I don't care if he's in the Hall of Fame. What Derrick Henry is an archetype. You're not going to compare Derrick Henry to anybody.
No.
You're going to compare other players that come after Derrick Henry to Derrick Henry. That's the sign of greatness with a capital G. DeAndre Hopkins has 7 catches for an incentive. Tyjae Spears, Chiggy Okonkwo, Traylon Burks. This is the future of this team. Let's see what they do in this game.
Yeah, see what they do there. And Tyjae Spears' future, that's got me excited about that. And now I'm thinking about Derrick Henry. Oh man.
Shaka. You know why they call it, his nickname was Shaka? Because he was an unexpected baby.
All right, there you go. Derrick Henry, man, is the man. It's amazing that we got to see that happen. And here's what's going to happen with the Titans. They're going to stay the same, almost in a way like the Steelers, although the Tommy Maddox era was there. But it's like, because trends change in the NFL. And so when the trend goes back,
the stopped clock.
Exactly. It'll be like, we were here this whole time.
That's what we do in New Orleans, man.
Oh, there you go.
They say we're so far behind that we're ahead.
You make me happy, Bloom. New Orleans internet does not, but you make me happy. So that's good. That's a positive, right? Let's talk about the Jets and New England. Why can I not line up the teams? It must be the glaucoma. New York Jets, New England Patriots. I could give a blank
Yeah.
about either one of these teams, but is it Belichick's last hurrah? I suppose that's the way I'll
Right.
toss it up.
Yeah, I mean, on the Jets side, it's the Brees and Garrett show, Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson, and maybe Aaron Rodgers. Is Aaron Rodgers preparing for his next career? Oh, I'll leave that alone. The end of an era, it's got to be the end of an era, right? There was a stat that came out on The Athletic that is really astounding. Like, really try to digest this. Since 2013, the Patriots have not signed any first, second, or third round picks to a second contract. Any. Zero. Not one. Since 2013. The failure here is the failure of Belichick as a GM, not Belichick as a coach. And what you miss if you're on Football Guy staff, you'd be part of base camp and you get to see our discussions, our internal discussions. And then we were discussing this over at base camp, and Matt Waldman brought up when Dante Scarnecchia was on the Ringer podcast a couple of years ago, and he was talking about their process. And he said it was very eye-opening for him, but not in the way I think that Scarnecchia intended. Because what Scarnecchia detailed is that Belichick bringing in the position coaches at the end of the process was basically overruling his scouts. And that's not the way to do it. He laid out, hey, there's another way to do it where the position coaches teach the scouts what they want, and the scouts look for that in their evaluation. But that's not how the Patriots did it, if you're looking for clues here. So I'm afraid that Belichick is going to be Belichick, the emperor, GM, king, coach, wherever he ends up next. But maybe he needs some young whippersnapper to teach him some new tricks.
Teach some new tricks, see what can happen there, see what's up next for the Audible as we're talking about all the games down in your neck of the woods. Atlanta and New Orleans and likely Desmond Ridder. Again, week 18, everybody. Week 18. And maybe no Alvin Kamara on the flip side. So a couple of things to talk about. But again, this is one of those like, all right. They hate each other.
Yeah.
The cities hate each other, whatever. But it's like, not really going to be dialed into this one, Bloom.
Yeah. Well, there's mediocrity. It could have been more if there was not so much mediocrity. It is the NFC South title game if Tampa loses to Carolina. And New Orleans can get in if they win and Seattle and Green Bay lose. They can get in anyway. Is it Ridder? Is it Heineke? Does it matter? Again, see, I hate to say this, but as fantasy football players, we're probably rooting for Atlanta to lose this game and for it to get Arthur Smith fired. Because never before, well, geez, Cease, is there even another team we've seen that had top 10 picks at tight end, wide receiver, and running back? Has that ever even happened before? Because so few tight ends have gone in the top 10, right?
Probably not.
It probably has never even happened before. So it's really incredible that this constellation happened and instead the power's out. And great. The first time these two teams played, there's a few rematches this week because both the teams are playing for something. We can go back to the first matchup this year and at least see if there's anything predictive there. When that first game, it was massive for the Falcons running game. Even Cordero Patterson had 43 yards rushing in that game. I think as a team, the three running backs together had almost 200 yards. It was a huge game for Bijan Robinson. So the up down with Bijan, you're playing some props, playing some DFS. Maybe even Drake London had 5 for 91 in that game. On the Saints side, watch the practice report for Juwan Johnson and Alvin Kamara. In the first game, it was 300 passing yards for Derek Carr. Chris Olave, the tight ends, had a pretty big game. And Derek Carr's healthier, and Derek Carr's playing better. So that's what to look for here, I think, on the Saints side. And like you said, Cease, this one means something, but only because these teams underachieved.
Yeah. And we'll see what the future holds. We're going to move forward with Dennis Allen and Arthur Smith, which means week 18 next year, we'll be saying the same God blessed thing. Tampa Bay, Carolina. You mentioned if the Buccaneers, they're not going to lose. I do want to see something, please. I like Bryce Young. I like him a lot. I can't stand Dave Tepper. There's a large conversation that I'll save for a later time about that. But hey, Baker the Baby Maker, he's banged up. You know he's going to play, baby. Like he's just going to get out there and sling it. I love Mike Evans. Rashad White has done his thing. But please, football gods, and even if we don't see anything in this week, Bryce Young is not a bust yet. But I just want to see flashes of what I know he can be. Someone figure this out, please. The kid's got talent. but talent can only take you so far. Let's see what he looks like this weekend, see how Tampa rolls over him.
Yeah, what a redemption year for Baker Mayfield, for Mike Evans. Remember, coming out of last year, Mike Evans won fantasy football championships for us in week 17, but was pretty quiet the rest of the season. And there was talk, is he declining? No, he's not. No, he's not. And Rachaad White also had a year, not a redemption year, but an arrival, proving himself. And it took a while. So this has been a year, again, the Rams, the Bucks, Bucks just need to win to get into the playoffs. Not rebuilding, retooling. Contrast that with New England in the post-Tom Brady era. David Tepper, I thought it was interesting. And like you said, he's bigger conversation, but let's just touch on this while we're on the Panthers. He threw a drink on a Jacksonville fan, did one of those non-apology apologies, got fined $300,000. Now, for him, $300,000 is the same for $3 for us, okay? But it is still a public rebuke on behalf of the other 31 members of the cartel, right? I mean, it is a message. It is saying, we don't approve of this. It's not even someone saying, well, maybe he should watch who he throws a drink on.
Yeah, but would he listen giving up $3? Right? And that's where the larger conversation comes in. He's worth 700 billion, zillion, trillion. Yeah, he's Dr. Evil with the football team, right? He's Joe's going to get mad at me. There's probably moronic tendencies, and all that money doesn't make you a good person. Evidence, Dave Tepper.
Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe give this 2023 Panthers team something to be proud of by playing spoiler, upsetting the Bucks, denying them from going to the playoffs. They can still get to the playoffs. They lose in some ways, and giving Bryce Young something to build on. Cease, but I do think, unfortunately, with all of the organizational stuff going against Bryce Young, you're still seeing that a quarterback who goes number 1 overall, just as Baker Mayfield showed, he should not have gone number 1 overall. A quarterback who goes number 1 overall should have the ability to overcome those things. I'm not saying overcome them and make them a Super Bowl champion. I'm saying that even that show on a play-to-play basis as you watch them, even if they're dropped into, the kind of surroundings that make a team pick number 1 overall, they can still show you why they were the number 1 overall pick. And Cease, like you said, we're still looking for that.
Still looking for that one. Let's talk about this next one, Bloom, because it's very, very interesting to me. Chicago and Green Bay. One team has found their quarterback of the future. One team has found their quarterback of the future and then maybe lost their quarterback. But maybe he still is, but I don't know. And the draft and number 1 and Caleb Williams, Chicago, Green Bay. Yeah, they're going to play. But my God, the offseason for the Bears is going to be one to watch.
Yeah, we'll be. We'll get to Arizona and talk about that. Maybe there's not as much intrigue. Maybe there is. But yeah, with Chicago. And look, Green Bay's in with a win. So Chicago can play spoiler. And this is one of those rivalries where the bad feelings run deep, or at the very least, it's not quite like New Orleans, Atlanta, where players will remember how you did in that game, like the college rivalries. But it is a pretty big rivalry. Are they going forward with Fields? I've probably seen enough. The offseason, we'll get into the discussion, but I think the Bears, if they're going forward with Ryan and Matt part 2 are probably going forward with Justin Fields and building around him. And of course, we're going to watch maybe Tyler Scott play a little more in this game, Roschon Johnson play a little more in this game. On the Green Bay side, I do want to take a moment out, and I'll eat my crow here. Matt LaFleur had the last laugh. And the Josiah DeGuara pick was terrible, and the A.J. Dillon pick was terrible. Remember, they were this close to going to the Super Bowl, and they took Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, and Josiah DeGuara in the first 3 rounds. And we said, I think back then, Cease, if Jordan Love ends up being the quarterback of the future, it doesn't matter. Well, guess what? Jordan Love's the quarterback of the future, so it doesn't matter. And this team has a lot going on for them. We should see Christian Watson return for this game. We should see Jaden Reed back after he left at halftime. Aaron Jones is peaking. You love to see that. We might even see Luke Musgrave come back. This is something to consider. We haven't even seen all the pieces that are all going to get better assembled around Jordan Love yet this year. They've all been hurt on and off. Maybe that's the story. And I'll say this, Cease, it's not difficult to picture this Packers team going into Dallas, going into Detroit, and winning in the first round of the playoffs.
All right, let's roll on as we continue to talk about these games And oh God, it's Denver and it's the Raiders. I'm not going to belabor this at all. More interested in Zamir White.
Right.
And Jarrett Stidham will only, if he plays well, will only be nice backup for Michael Penix.
Right.
Or Jaden Daniels. And
Right.
that's take it as Lassie Barks, take it whatever you want. The Broncos are going to move up for a quarterback. So let's just fast forward to that, which means fast forwarding as fast as you can, Bloom, past Broncos and Raiders.
Yeah, I think with Denver, Cecil, you addressed it. I only had one line for my Denver preview. What does the future of this team look like? A quarterback, and then we'll see from there. There are some pieces on the Raiders side. Zamir White, you mentioned. Aiden O'Connell, maybe. What's the will there to move up for a quarterback? You also saw Michael Mayer banged up, unfortunately. Trey Tucker, deep ball action for them, helping. It's the Raiders. They're going to have a vertical element to the passing game, and that's the best I could do.
Yeah, that's the best you can do. But think about Aiden O'Connell real quick. I would feel better about going forward with Aiden O'Connell than going forward with Kenny Pickett. I'd feel better about going forward with Aiden O'Connell than going forward with Bryce Young. You've seen enough from the kid. It's not great, whatever, but it's not terrible, and it's not an embarrassment the way that Pickett has been embarrassing, the way that Young has been embarrassing. So, yeah.
And see, I'll say this on that note. What's one of the phrases I certainly like to use when we talk about quarterbacks when we first get to see them get on the field in an NFL game? This could apply to Jake Browning. Is the game too big for them? The game's not too big for Aiden O'Connell.
No.
The game doesn't look too big for Jake Browning. I don't think it was an exaggeration when one of the opposing coaches said, when we were watching Jake Browning, we had to rub our eyes and say, wait, was that Joe Burrow or Jake Browning? There's no point when you're mixing Kenny Pickett up with Kirk Cousins, right? There's no point when you're mixing Bryce Young up with Drew Brees or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem. And I think that you're right to point out that success of the team, stats, whatever, you can watch a player and say, is he growing from his mistakes? Is from a psychological, emotional, spiritual standpoint, does it seem like he understands the challenge and he's ready to take it on? Or is he shrinking away from that challenge? And since we're obsessed with Kenny Pickett, as we should be as Steelers fans, I don't see Kenny Pickett rising to that challenge.
Yeah. Amano asks, is there a role for Jaleel in this offense long term? I mean, as the Joker, it's probably going to be someone else leading the backfield. There'll be a running back competition next year. Javonte may be better next year because he'll be more than a year removed from that horrific knee injury. But Jaleel's got a ceiling on his game. He's not Alvin Kamara. So, wherever that ceiling's at, he is a Joker, which means, and he's asked to grow his role in the passing game with Sean Payton. So, put a pin in that. Don't expect a ton from Jaleel just because of his size, and that'll limit how much they use him. Moving on to our next game up, it looks like Philadelphia and the Giants. What is the meme of the stick figure poking the thing on the ground? Come on, do something. Philadelphia, dude.
Yeah.
Somewhere Jason Wood is very upset going up against Tyrod and the Giants, and this one in. Well, I was going to say New York, but New Jersey, whatever.
Right.
I hate when people get technical like that. Yeah, let's go down to Dallas, watch the Cowboys. They actually play in Irvine.
Santa Clara 49ers.
Exactly. I'm like, it's like when you watch Rogue One and you see the AT-ATs blown up, and then it's like, well, that's actually not an AT-AT. It's an AT-ATCT. So it's not as not as durable as the Hoth AT-ATs that you saw run roughshod over the Rebel base.
Are they self-driving?
They should be. As blind as stormtroopers are.
Yeah, see, you got it right on this one. I mean, I think the interesting thing about the Eagles is we generally believe that the momentum a team has, positive or negative, going into the playoffs carries over to the playoffs, but not always. The Eagles have nothing but negative momentum right now, but they are also a team that had, with different coordinators, this team, the same team basically, in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. Devontae Smith's banged up. Again, unless Dallas loses, nothing for them to gain. Lots of questions for this Giants team, but I will say this, they're going to put up a fight. They're going to put up a fight in this game. And Tyrod Taylor for fantasy is interesting this week for props and so on. And I'll be watching. Are we going to see more of Jalen Hyatt? Are we going to see more of Eric Gray? Remember, Saquon Barkley not under contract for next year. And Wan'Dale Robinson, who I know has been a favorite of ours the little bit of time that he's been healthy. And, you brought up Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, this is another player who physically maybe doesn't fit the classic roles in an offense, but in 21st century offenses, you can find a role. They have found a role, and he was impactful last week. And even though the Giants didn't really take a step forward, and yes, there are questions, hey, yet another team. So I'll put this out there, Cease, as a preview of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about in the offseason. We can probably make a list of 8 teams, 10 teams, right? Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, Buffalo, Philadelphia. You can go down the list. Houston. There aren't that many teams that should feel free to just ignore this quarterback draft class. This is one of the most important draft quarterback classes to get right. Like you said, Cease, last 5 years, last 10 years, last 20 years, it's going to be franchise changing. And franchise changing doesn't just mean, do you take the right quarterback, or even do you take a quarterback? Because sometimes the decision to not take a quarterback is franchise changing. Like the Steelers could have taken Lamar Jackson over Edmonds.
The Broncos should have taken Josh Allen instead of Bradley Chubb,
for example. So the Giants are one of those organizations. Doesn't matter how much money you lose if your Daniel Jones isn't your starter. If you have a chance, starters the caliber of Daniels, starters the caliber of Penix, they go number 1 or number 2 overall in every draft, probably except this one.
Yep. Oh, off-season mode is more fun than week 18. Seattle and Arizona. Now let's take that same conversation, Bloom, and put it towards Seattle. Geno Smith is all right. Drew Lock's a little less than that, but he's all right as well. And Pete Carroll's won with just an all right quarterback. He won a Super Bowl with that guy. His name's Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, do you really want to go forward with, the airline food or the hospital food? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to get you by, but wouldn't a steak be nice?
Right. Well, again, Seattle's one of those teams. Everybody's got to work up this quarterback class and figure out where they fit in there. But I will say this. I think we can say definitively with another year of data, they're better off with Geno than they were with Russell Wilson. It ended up, franchise changing was not going down with the Russell Wilson ship. And whatever we say about Geno and how far he can get this team, as a franchise, they're better off. I mean, look, just the fact that we don't see the Jamal Adams trade as crippling for this team, the Russell Wilson trade was part of that. Kenneth Walker fighting through his injury. We'll see if he can last this game. Jack Smith and Jigba's coming on. On the Arizona side, you have Jonathan Gannon saying, yeah, basically, of course, chuckling, Kyler's our guy. Now, a lot of Cardinals folks will say, if you're paying attention, you should have always known that Kyler was the guy. It didn't even really matter what Kyler did. Now, other folks, Blake Allen Murphy is one of my favorite people covering any team, says maybe it's that nobody else wants the contract. Maybe it's just that they already know they're stuck with Kyler Murray. I don't want to paraphrase him, but that's part of this picture. Maybe it isn't that they love and embrace Kyler Murray, but it does look like at this point, if you're a betting person, you would say bet on Kyler Murray starting week 1 for Arizona, and playing spoiler, Seattle win and a Green Bay loss, and they get in. James Conner has won himself at $5+ million a job for next year. Watching Trey McBride, we're not asking what his role is going to be in the future. We're seeing it. Michael Wilson, could he be the number 1 receiver for this team next year? Rondale Moore, there's someone that you're saying, poking with a stick and saying, do something. They spoiled Philly last week. They're going to be up for spoiling Seattle this week.
Yeah, let's talk about the next game up. It is Kansas City and Los Angeles. Philly fans are pointing at Kansas City. Like, Kansas City fans are pointing at Philly. But a fantastic team. And maybe some more flashes from younger players. Rashee Rice, by the way, when everyone's like, they don't have a number 1. Well, they don't have Tyreek, but Rashee Rice is a talented player on to come up. So keep watching that. Chargers have been in Cancun modes for a month, something like that. So, yeah, there you go. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Although when you're the Chargers and you're formerly from San Diego, just go right down the road, baby. A little Tijuana will make you, set you right.
Yeah, the North County, San Diego, Del Mar, Encinitas.
That's where I'm going to be,
Florida.
Bloom.
Yeah, it's a good place.
I'll be doing that
meet you
show right near the beach.
there. I'll be meeting you there.
We'll be like the end of Shawshank Redemption, right?
mhm.
Where it's like, well, I'll be making the boat on the beach and I'll just look over and you'll be carrying your suitcase. We'll both be evading the authorities.
Yes, always.
I'd be down for it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's meet
What's
up.
in your briefcase? What's in the box?
Right. What's in the Kansas City box? Michael Pirine, Deneric Prince. I mean, Justin Ross. You know, we'll watch these guys. This is a weakened Kansas City team. The setting for the playoffs is do they make all that not matter because they've been there, done that? This is also the best defense they've had in their dynasty era. For the Chargers, just what a mess. What a mess. See, it almost makes you think about the sad love stories, right? Where you can be at the end and reflect back on how much hope and how much optimism there was at the beginning with Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert still on a rookie contract. And where have we ended up? Well, they have Justin Herbert and I don't know, Derwin James. I mean, they have who are the pieces? The offensive line. It's just sad for the Chargers fans that are left. I feel for you folks because you're putting in your heart and you're not getting anything back.
Yeah. Luke says he knows a few folks down in the island, so hook a brother up.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Ilos de las Mujeres. I had a buddy of mine, Matt Campbell. Shout out Matt Campbell, who went down there for a vacation. Actually writing a comic book about that island now. Anyway.
Culebra. Look into Culebra.
Okay.
I think it's like a cobra, Culebra.
Okay. Let's
Spanish Virgin Islands.
Look into the Los Angeles Rams versus the San Francisco 49ers, and it's a Sam Darnold show, and it's Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Sam Darnold
I put this
Carson
in
Wentz.
the put this in the newswire, like, you know, a few years ago, Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold, you'd be like, what a matchup.
Oh my gosh.
And now you're just like, although the Sam Darnold, I'm telling you, if there was a Jeff Hostetler in today's NFL, meaning backup,
right,
that could win the Super Bowl, his name is Sam Darnold with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle loves him.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. And I guess it's just we could spend the whole hour on the Darnold and Wentz stories. 6 versus 7 doesn't matter to the Rams, but Puka Nacua setting some rookie records probably does. So Puka's looking good here. We'll see some Ronnie Rivers, some Davis Allen. We'll see some Jordan Mason, maybe some Jawan Jennings, some Ronnie Bell. That's a guy I'm excited to watch in the San Francisco offense with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, there you go. Moving right along. Well, that was a quick one, Bloom. Some of them are like that. Dallas and Washington.
Another quick one.
Yeah, and God bless America. I feel so bad for Jacoby Brissett. Like, he looked good in relief of Hal for 2 weeks. Then he's going to start. Then a hamstring injury on Thursday, and now it's back to Hal. So say goodbye to Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy, and say hello to, I don't even know.
My little friend. Sam Howell's my little friend. I don't know. Dallas wins and they get the number 2 seed, which is important because they're just a different team at home. And they still would need San Francisco to get upset, just like the Steelers always needed the Patriots to get upset. But it happens. And Dallas, you like the Dallas offense in this one. And then we'll see. This is a Super Bowl caliber roster, Super Bowl caliber coaches. Franchise, we'll see. The Washington, we talk about some of these teams, like what's the bridge to the future? I mean, what is the bridge to the future for Washington? Boy, this is a team that if they don't come out of this draft with a quarterback, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Even if you have to make the same kind of trade that Carolina did. I don't even know, because as we're going through, some of these teams have nothing to play for this week. I'm saying, well, they're going to see more out of this player for the future. Who is that for Washington? Is it Jahan Dotson? Well, he was supposed to arrive this year. He kind of arrived last year, right? Okay, Brian Robinson. What's the future of this team? The future of this team is on the Bears roster, revitalizing the Bears defense. It's somebody, Chase Young, chasing a ring as part of the 49ers defense. So it's tough. And Washington fans, there are still lots and lots of Washington fans. And that's all they can root for or be happy about is that they know that Dan Snyder is not connected to their team anymore. Congratulations. Maybe that's it, Cease. Maybe it's like turning around a cruise ship. To get rid of Dan Snyder and the Dan Snyder stink, you got to stink for a little while.
Yeah, you gotta have that stank on you. What is it, buttermilk? If you get sprayed by a skunk, what do you bathe
Oh,
in?
I don't
Or
even
is it
know.
tomato juice?
I think it's tomato
Is it
juice.
tomato juice? Yeah. So there you go. All right. Hot bath tips here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, wrapping it up. This one deserves a little bit more.
Yeah.
Buffalo and Miami. Just talking to my best friend Big E last night, telling him how burned out I was. And I was like, please tell me your Bills are going to get it done. Please. On the Miami side, it's like, okay, it was supposed to be different. So, momentum into the postseason, all these sorts of things. Buffalo could continue to build that. There's a quiet storm brewing. It is with the Buffalo Bills, but let's talk about this one.
That's an all-time great song. You know the song Quiet Storm? Smokey Robinson?
No.
Oh, look it up, man.
Okay.
When I was a kid listening to WAMO, Whammo in Pittsburgh, and they weren't the only station that did it. They had a show that went from like 10 or 11 p.m. to like 4 a.m. or something called Quiet Storm. It was all the.
We should start that on pirate radio on on YouTube. Like, I think that's where we end up, Bloom. We end up on a beach in Mexico, and
Pirate
then we're
radio.
just doing like pirate radio, playing like old songs.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the heavy metal show. I've got the Quiet Storm, and we collaborate on the hip hop show. Oh wow, what a game! AFC East title on the line, and for Buffalo, the playoffs on the line. And isn't that really a perfect picture of just how fragile it all is? How fragile it all is when you strive for something greater than yourself. Because arguably, if Buffalo can win this game, and they won 48-20 in the first matchup, if Buffalo can win this game, Cease, they will be better prepared to make the march to the Super Bowl than they have been at any other point in the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott era, right? But if things don't break their way and they lose, they won't even go to the playoffs unless Pittsburgh loses and Jacksonville loses. But remember, they're already going to know, and you need Will Levis to come through for you. You need Tyler Huntley to come through for you. You got to win this game. You're going to the playoffs, okay? What will this offense look like? Stephon Diggs had 3 touchdowns in the first game. Stephon Diggs has like 1 touchdown in the second half of the season. Do they have the ability now? And here's the thing. Do they need to go run heavy? Do they need to be conservative and short passing because they have developed those parts of the offense this year? Or does Joe Brady understand how to use the posturing of that to even more so soften up a Dolphins defense? And look, this is sad because Mike McDaniel, we love Mike McDaniel. Again, Stephen Ross wanted this to be Brady and Peyton. Instead, it's Mike McDaniel and Tua, and it's looking good. It's on schedule, except Jalen Waddle's banged up, Raheem Mostert's banged up, Bradley Chubb's on IR, Jalen Phillips is on IR. So, I mean, for the Bills, it's honestly an immense disappointment. If you can't go in and beat the Dolphins, a weakened Dolphins team, knowing your life depends on it, then you were never worthy of a Super Bowl anyway. And also, we'll see Dalton Kincaid, if Dawson Knox is out, play a little more. And then on the Miami side, I think it's just Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill and Tua, basically. Like, can that be enough? And Devin Achane, I guess, because he looked pretty good last week. Can the speed and the scheming and Tua Tagovailoa and quick accuracy, can that be enough? This is going to be a game, I think, either that makes us really excited to watch the Bills in the playoffs, or makes us so disappointed in the Bills, but really makes us need to tip our hats to Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and also the biggest game changer that's not a quarterback in the league, Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Jimmy says Quiet Storm also reminds me of
Sade.
Sade. Yeah,
man.
Sade. Either way, I love her.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my.
yes.
I mean,
you talk about like perfect artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
although I can't pronounce her name. Sade. I always said Sade.
Sade. I've always seen it like Sade. I hope she goes. I mean, if this is one of those, there's a short list of shows. Tom Waits is probably the top of it that I would travel to see. Like, I would go to New York or San Francisco. Like, I would, cash in some life savings to see. And that Sade, please. I saw the internet is making new music again. Please, the internet, come back. Please. Air is back too. That's another one. They're back and they're
Really?
playing Moon Safari. They're
Really?
only in Europe. Air is back and playing Moon Safari.
Well, I
in
guess
Europe.
we got to get our passports together then.
Yeah, I know. Mine's it's expired.
I've never had one. Not sure if I can get one.
We won't need one to do pirate radio from the beach.
Exactly. That's right. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials. We will be back. What, Bloom Monday? We're going to do a Monday, or we're going to do it Tuesday, because our normal off-season schedule will be like this. We're not going to do a recap on week 18. Sorry. We never have. This is our now entering our 19th season of the Audible. So we kind of have a pattern. But on Black Monday, we will be doing some sort of a show. It might be on Tuesday, Bloom. Maybe this is an off-air conversation. Then we'll be back with our playoff previews. We don't do playoff recaps because during the playoff games, I'll be traveling, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, blah, blah, blah. And then off-season mode, we'll get in our newsy shows.
Yeah.
Which will be on a Tuesday. So there you go. Yeah, I think that's right. Oh, Chuck here is like, Chuck gets it. Swinging my hips.
That's right. Hips don't lie. Yeah. No, it's good.
Monday or Tuesday? What are we going to do?
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be checking in Monday or Tuesday, maybe Monday and Tuesday, and we'll be previewing the playoff games every week, and we will be here. And again, I'll just invite everybody, because you do more for us than we could ever do for you. Let us know how we can serve you in the off season. We're old, so we need to lick our wounds a little bit, but we love this community. We love seeing y'all. We love seeing your avatars, your names, your handles going by in the chat, and you're there for us as much as you are there for us as much, more than we are there for you. So let us know how we can better serve you as we all together go into 2024, whatever it brings.
Yeah, and we're always open for suggestions, Bloom, and I've toyed with the idea of like we should just do a show every day or every other day for like 20 minutes, because one, we'd have the time, and two, it doesn't bog you down like the regular season. I've said it before, the regular season is a flipping grind, and then the draft season gets here. And I'm like the phoenix, Bloom, rising from the ashes, now with better hair.
The hair really, that's what we have from this season, Cease. It's the return of the
Y'all got to see it in real time, because I shaved my head for a year. So 2020 through 2022, I just shaved my head all year long. And then 2023, I haven't cut my hair in a year. I will go get it trimmed because it'll grow faster and healthier with a trim of the split end. So I'll probably get.
Is that from your mom? Is that hair from your mom?
Oh, this is Mexican hair for sure. Yeah, for sure. And all three of us, Marlita, Carrie, and myself, all blessed with the Mexican hair. So, and all three of my kids have the Mexican hair as well.
Wow.
So very thick. Yeah, if I put up a picture of Katerina and Avery too, Avery's got incredible hair. Liam's hair is cool, but of course military, so he doesn't have any hair right now. But yeah, so yeah, good hair, good genes there from the Gonzalez side. Although my grandpa Paul Gonzalez, and I didn't know this until his funeral, Bloom, he was adopted. His real dad's name was Santos Celios.
Oh.
So I say Gonzalez because the Gonzalez family adopted him, and that's my mother's maiden name is Gonzalez. But it's like, Santos Celios. So there you go.
Oh, there's a story that starts there.
Yeah. Rumor has it that he was a lawyer for Pancho Villa.
Oh, wow.
That's, of course, from my Uncle Basil, who's like, he used to embellish things. So like, I just heard that, and I think he might have wrote it again around Grandpa Paul's funeral, but
we got to do a Pancho Villa episode. We're going to do a Pancho Villa episode.
We do. We should. And then I got to do the 23andMe. What is it? What is the one?
Oh,
genealogy?
Right. Yeah, the genealogy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. All right.
Yeah, we'd all be shocked.
Boom. We're shocked. We're all connected.
The father is Joe Bryant.
Start doing the dance, right? There you go. We are all interconnected. By the way, super big announcement for the end of the show if you're sticking around.
Oh,
for this.
yeah.
Yeah. Bob flipping Harris And what is Bob Harris going to do for football, guys?
Whatever Bob Harris.
Anything you want.
Yeah.
And we're always open for suggestions.
But tell us.
Yes,
yeah.
please. Like we're old heads and we're going to keep doing what we do. Whatever that means. We're going to keep doing the Audible. We put out 225 episodes last year, which is around what we're doing. We're 225, 230, whatever. But if there's a different version, or if you would like a somewhat daily show, like, yeah, sure, man, make the suggestions. Again, the off season, it's much more pleasurable than the regular season. So now with more Bob Harris.
Now with a lot more Bob Harris, who's all of our uncle. The father is Bob Harris.
That's right. He's Sig. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Stay tuned. And would you always, as always, please stay frosty.